From Kiki Camarena, one of the most agent in the DEA who messed with the Sinaloa cartel and didn't live to tell the story, to Robert Krentz, who reported a suspected cartel member and was shot dead before the cops even got to the scene. We got 9 Americans who crossed the cartel and instantly suffered dire consequences. Enrique Kiki Camarena. Kiki Camarena wasn't down there on vacation. He was a hunter, born in Mexicali, raised broke in California. He strapped on a DEA badge in 1973 and got real good at his job, maybe a little too good for his own safety. By 1984, his intel helped trigger the raid on Rancho Bufalo, a marijuana plantation estimated at around $8 billion in annual value. And to the Guadalajara cartel, that wasn't a bust. That was the ultimate disrespect. So on February 7, 1985, corrupt Mexican police working for the cartel snatched him in broad daylight while he walked to meet his wife for lunch, then tortured him for about 30 hours with a doctor allegedly kept in the room just to keep him breathing. His body turned up weeks later, wrapped in plastic and dumped in a field, and the murder set off Operation Leyenda, the largest DEA homicide investigation in history at the time. He disrespected an $8 billion machine just by doing his job, and it cost him everything. Mark James Kilroy. Mark Kilroy never disrespected a soul, and that's the part that'll mess with you. He was 21, a pre-med honors student at the University of Texas, and in March 1989, he rolled down to South Padre for spring break with his boys. Just a normal trip on a normal night. They crossed into Matamoros to party, and somewhere after midnight on March 14, Kilroy vanished near a street called Alvaro Obregón. His friends searched for hours, but he was just gone. What took him was a narco cult run by a man named Adolfo Constanzo, a smooth-talking priest who told his followers that human sacrifice would make them bulletproof, and he meant that literally. Kilroy got picked almost at random for ritual protection at a ranch called Rancho Santa Elena, and his remains ended up being one of 15 dug out of that cursed ground. Constanzo died in a Mexico City shootout the next month, ordering his own follower to shoot him. Mark crossed a border just to dance, and that's the only crime here. Martin Alejandro Cota Monroy. Here's a man who poked the bear on purpose. Cota Monroy was 38 and moving product for an organization tied to the Sinaloa cartel, but instead of moving the work, he stole it, roughly 400 pounds of marijuana plus meth that he lifted from the cartel. Then he lied about it, claiming Border Patrol had seized the load, and stealing plus lying is a death sentence with interest attached. He talked his way out of an execution in Nogales by promising to pay it all back, then ran north to Chandler, Arizona, figuring American soil meant brand new rules. It didn't. On October 10, 2010, Chandler police walked into an apartment and found his decapitated body in a pool of blood, stabbed and beheaded, with his head sitting right nearby. This wasn't a robbery, it was a message mailed across a border. It still stands as one of the rare documented cartel-style beheadings on U.S. soil, and the man tied to the hit got 14 years. The regret found him 400 miles away. Robert Krentz. Robert Krentz was a fourth-generation Arizona rancher running around 35,000 acres in Cochise County near the Mexican border, and he was known for one thing above all, which was helping people. Migrants in trouble, lost souls dying in that desert. He gave them water and called for help. But his ranch sat right in a smuggling corridor, and over 5 years that traffic cost him somewhere north of $8 million in busted fences and broken water lines. His only real disrespect was being there as a witness, and the day before he died, agents seized 250 pounds of marijuana on his ranch, so the corridor was running hot. On the morning of March 27, 2010, Krentz radioed his brother about somebody who looked like they needed help, and that was his last known transmission. He got shot out in the open country he loved and died trying to drive for help, and they killed his dog too. The killing got attributed to a smuggler or scout who crossed back toward the border, and it stays unsolved to this day. Agustin Bobby Salcedo. Bobby Salcedo was a good man having a good night. A U.S. citizen out of El Monte, California, an assistant principal, a football coach, and a school board member. He was down in Gomez Palacio, Durango, visiting his wife's family over the holidays. On New Year's Eve, armed men came busting through a restaurant door and dragged Salcedo and 5 other men out at gunpoint, drove them into the dark, and shot every last one of them execution style before dumping the bodies in a ditch. He had no enemies down there, no debts, and no connection to any of it, just a man in the wrong room at the wrong time during a wave of cartel terror. His death reached all the way up to the floor of Congress, where Representative Judy Chu stood up to honor him, reminding everybody that this violence does not stay politely in some faraway land. The resolution honoring him passed unanimously, but then the lead investigator on his case got ambushed and killed too. They don't just kill you, they kill whoever's hunting for who did it. Leslie Enriquez. Leslie Enriquez worked at the U.S. consulate in Ciudad Juarez. She was a U.S. citizen, and reports at the time said she was pregnant. Back in 2010, Juarez was the most dangerous city on the planet, with the Juarez Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel at war over the routes, and a street gang called Barrio Azteca handling all the dirty work, racking up hundreds of murders a year. On March 13, 2010, she and her husband left a child's birthday party and climbed into their vehicle, but gunmen were already waiting. Here's the part that freezes your blood, because the victims were initially mistaken for rival gang members. She wasn't a target for who she actually was. She died over who somebody thought she might be. But this one carried an ending, because the lieutenant who ordered the killings got extradited and sentenced to life in 2014, and the gunman who pulled the triggers also got life. The Matamoros Four. In March 2023, 4 friends out of South Carolina crossed into Matamoros so one of them could get a medical procedure handled. Just medical tourists, and nothing more than that. They got turned around on a side street, and the whole world exploded on them because they had driven straight into a gunfight between rival factions of the Gulf Cartel. 2 of the men jumped out the car to run for it, but they never got far. The cartel loaded all 4 of them into the back of a pickup, the wounded and the dead together, collateral that got swept up by the Scorpions faction in the middle of their own internal warfare. Then came the moment that breaks you all the way down, when Shaid, bleeding out in that truck bed, told his friends he loved them and was gone. 2 of them made it home and 2 of them did not. And in one of the strangest endings in cartel history, the faction put out a public written apology and handed 5 of its own members over to authorities, claiming the killers had broken their rules. Ronita Maria Miller. Ronita Miller was 30 and a mother, a dual U.S.-Mexican citizen out of the LeBaron community, a quiet, deeply religious family that had been living peacefully in Sonora for generations. On November 4, 2019, she packed several of her children into a vehicle for a family wedding convoy, reportedly planning to meet her husband along the way, but she never made it there because her vehicle got ambushed by gunmen and set on fire, killing her and several of her kids, including infant twins. There is no version of this where she did anything wrong. She was a mom driving her own kids to a wedding. The convoy was most likely mistaken for rival cartel vehicles during a territorial dispute, just white SUVs rolling through contested country, a wrong guess made by men holding rifles. This is exactly where the idea of disrespecting the cartel falls completely apart, because an 8-month-old baby doesn't disrespect anybody. They got killed for existing in the wrong place. The 9 of La Mora. Ronita wasn't alone out there that day. She was one of 9. And this is the case that made the entire world stop and watch, so it's the right place to end. On that same morning, the LeBaron family convoy got ambushed in rural country between Sonora and Chihuahua, less than 100 miles from Arizona, when around 20 gunmen opened fire and the vehicles got riddled with hundreds of rounds. By the time it was over, 9 U.S. dual citizens were dead, 3 mothers and 6 children. Then came the part that should be carved in stone, because 13-year-old Devin Langford hid his younger siblings and then walked roughly 14 miles through dangerous terrain just to get help. Children saved children that day because every grown adult who could have was already dead or dying. The official story is no disrespect, no cartel ties, just mistaken identity in a turf war. The title promised people who disrespected the cartels, but the truth is uglier because the cartels don't need a reason, and that's the regret that belongs to all of us who keep looking the other way. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.